We
are
cultivate.
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 We are cultivate.
Hello and welcome to Ye Olde Crime, where we discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear. I'm your host, Lindsay Valenti, and with me is my sister and co-host, Maddie Stengel.
Hello.
Hello. Before we get started, I do want to address the potential birds in the room. If you have been keeping up with us on social media, you have probably read by now that I recently had foot surgery. Hopping around makes me very, very hot. And rather than dealing with the low drone of a fan blowing in the background of the audio, I figured the random sounds of bird song would be preferred for all of our listeners. So, yes, I am aware there are birds in the background, but I wanted to say it up front so you know there will probably be birds.
Probably be birds.
There's nothing I can do about it. It was either that or just like melt as I'm recording this. So,
PBB. Probably be birds.
yep. And two things of note before we dive into our 199th episode.
Insane.
I want to thank, as always, Carrie Ann for helping with her research assistance, or for her
Thank you,
research assistance on this episode.
Thank you.
She is a treasure, and I appreciate her. And as you may have guessed, what comes after 199 is 200. And if you would like to be included in our 200th episode, you can DM us on X or Instagram, or you can email us at yeoldecrimepodcast@gmail.com. Any questions, well wishes, you can write them out, you can record them, whatever you want. I just ask that you get them to us by the day this comes out, so the 15th of May. If you get it to me by Friday, that's okay, but try to get them in by the 15th so I can get them all included in the episode.
Nicely incorporated instead of last minute shoving in.
Yeah, instead of like shoehorning them in at the last minute.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to close the cubby and let's dive into Henrietta Maria.
Ooh, 2 first names.
Yes, but not a serial killer.
Okay. I like
Just going to
this.
say that now. Because that's usually the case with serial killers. 2 first names.
True.
Information was pulled from the following sources: a 2023 Owlcation article by Joanna Hale, 2022 Atlas Obscura article by Sarah Dern, 2020 History Hit article by Lily Johnson, 2019 Philippa Gregory post, 2018 Royal Academy magazine article by Erin Griffey, 2014 The Monarchy blog post by Lauren Wilmot, 1929 The Chattanooga News article by Preston Wright, All Poetry, Britannica, British Civil Wars, Encyclopedia, English Monarchs, Merton College, Oxford, Royal Museums of Greenwich, and Wikipedia. Lots of links this week.
Yeah.
And links to all of these articles will be included in the show notes. If you want a playlist of all our episodes on YouTube, click the link in our show notes or in our link tree and subscribe today for not only a list of our full catalog, but a separate list as well, just of our Can You Crack the Cramp Word segments. Henrietta Maria was born on November 25th, 1609, at the Palais du Louvre in Paris to parents King Henry IV of France and Marie de Medici. Her father had ended the wars of religion in France that had raged between the Catholics and the Huguenots, granting tolerance of Huguenots with the Edict of Nantes in 1598.
Tolerance.
Yes.
That doesn't seem very peaceful.
No.
That's not a very peaceful word.
No.
Tolerance.
Yeah. Henrietta was the youngest of 6 siblings and was born just 6 months before her father was assassinated on May 14th, 1610, by a fanatical monk named Francois Ravaillac. He didn't like the tolerance.
Yeah. No, the tolerance wasn't enough.
No,
Or it was too much.
I don't think it was enough.
Okay. Okay.
He needed all the tolerance. They wanted
He
to be
needed
equal.
he needed acceptance, not just
Yes.
tolerance.
Yes. Henrietta was raised as a Roman Catholic under the supervision of her royal governess, Françoise de Montglat. I butchered that, and I am sorry. Along with her siblings, which include Elizabeth Valois, who would go on to marry King Philip IV of Spain, Christine Marie, the Duchess of Savoy, Nicolas Henri, the Duke of Orleans, Gaston Jean-Baptiste, Duke of Orleans, and her brother, King Louis XIII of France, who was forced to assume the mantle of king at the age of 9 following their father's assassination.
So it's just typical in this family that, like,
Yeah.
murders happen.
Yep. I mean, obviously, their mother was Queen Regent until he was of age,
Right.
but yes.
Right.
Henrietta grew up living primarily at Chateau du Saint-Germain-Zolet, in the palace that her father's first wife, Margaret of France, had built. She and her sisters were taught to ride, dance, sing, and although she was taught to read and write, she wasn't a gifted academic. Like, she wasn't dumb,
Yeah.
but like it wasn't
She
really
just
her
didn't
thing.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the time she was 13, she was living in Paris in a home run by around 200 staff, and talks of marriage had already begun.
How old was she?
13.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I know it's inevitable, but I hate it.
Yeah. Her mother, Marie, had been banished from Paris several years earlier when Henrietta was 7.
Oh, but they kept her.
Well, her brother, the king, banished their mother.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not good.
No. Henrietta met her future husband, Charles I of England, Scotland, and Ireland, in 1623. He and his flamboyant bestie, the Duke of Buckingham, traveled to Spain incognito to attempt to woo Maria Anna of Spain.
Oh. So it was a sneaky plan.
Mm-hmm. Maria was extremely unimpressed by Charles and his antics, but all wasn't lost. As the Queen of Spain, Elizabeth de Bourbon asked Charles to wed her youngest sister, Henrietta, instead. And so a favorable marriage was negotiated.
You get me, but younger.
Which was for the best because they were already trying to find a way to get England and France to like play nice
Link up
with one
again.
another.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, hey, you should go with my sister. And he was
fair.
like, okay.
That's fair.
Henrietta was described as petite, well-formed, and graceful, with sparkling black eyes.
Well formed.
I know, it's so
Why?
gross.
Why would you say that? Well formed.
I know, it's really gross. And graceful, with sparkling black eyes and a pleasing
Black
personality.
eyes.
Yes.
Black.
Yeah,
Black
she was a
eyes.
black-eyed kid. Let me into your house.
This is gonna be a great union. Let me into England.
She remembered Charles as being tall, grave, and good-looking.
Grave.
I know, he's very grave. Which works well with her black eyes.
Right. Together we'll usher in the apocalypse.
And the pair had exchanged love letters for a few months prior to their marriage, which is cute.
Nice. That is cute.
One of Henrietta's contemporaries, Sophia of Hanover, described her as, quote, a short woman perched on her chair with long, bony arms, irregular shoulders, and teeth protruding from her mouth like a fence, end quote.
Oh, so she was her best friend. That was...
Yeah.
Really liked her. Really enjoyed her a lot. Thought she was great. Twigs.
Yeah.
Twig arms.
Yeah.
Uneven shoulders.
while in the same breath saying that she had, quote, beautiful eyes, a well-shaped nose, and an admirable complexion, end quote.
Well, at least she finished off with a compliment.
Yep.
Complimenting her black eyes. It makes me wonder if she had doe eyes, like the type of brown eyes that are so dark that they
Mm-hmm.
do look almost black. Because those are really striking and beautiful. But just she's got black eyes. Like what?
King James I, Charles's father, passed away on March 27th, only days after the marriage treaty had been finalized. As a
Oh,
result, Charles ascended to the throne of England, Scotland, and Ireland as Charles I, and was unwilling to wait the customary mourning period for his bride to arrive.
yeah, I bet. He was like, "Ooh, I'm a leader now. I need my lady."
Yep. Henrietta married King Charles I in a proxy wedding on May 1st, 1625 at Notre Dame.
Proxy wedding.
So,
Somebody else stood there while they made the vows because she wasn't there
yes.
yet.
Yes. So she had a wedding at Notre Dame with like a stand-in for him.
Do you think they did it at like the same time to try to make it like as samesies as possible?
I mean, that would be adorable if they did.
I know, like it would add a cuteness level to this story that I feel like it needs. So I'm gonna pretend that they had some sort of carrier pigeon or crow or raven, and they were like, let's do this together at noon, like when the
Yep.
sun is at the highest point. Let's do it.
At the time, Charles was 24 and she was 15.
Ah.
But they weren't able to officially wed until over a month later on June 13th, 1625, at St. Augustine's Abbey near Canterbury, Kent, after she arrived at Dover. So, like the same day she
Yeah,
arrived, they went straight to the chapel and were like,
yeah.
ding, ding, ding,
Let's get this going.
let's put on that ring. Because Henrietta was a Roman Catholic, she was unable to take part in her husband's coronation ceremony on February 2nd, 1626.
What, she couldn't even be in the room?
She was able to observe it, but at a discreet distance. Like, typically the queen would be involved in the ceremony,
Yeah.
but
So what? Oh, so this was after Henry VIII.
this was after Bloody Queen
So
Mary.
so Catholicism was not in vogue
No,
within royalty at this time.
correct.
That's so weird to think about because like
Yeah.
now you just kind of assume
hmm
Catholicism was always in vogue and you forget that like, oh no, like kind of the bloodiest parts of history were because
Because of Catholicism.
because
But, you know,
Catholicism wasn't involved or wanted to be involved.
whatevs.
Yeah, it's fine. So he was a Protestant then? That's
Yes.
what he would be? Okay.
So she herself was also not allowed to have a coronation ceremony, as a Catholic coronation was out of the question. Like, the people would
Yeah,
not have allowed it.
right.
And as you mentioned, at this time, the English people were Protestant, and Henrietta refused to convert, as her brother, the King of France,
Mhm.
only consented to the match should some tolerance be afforded Roman Catholics in England.
So she had to stay that way based on the platform she was accepted as.
That, and she was extremely devout. Like, there was no way she was going to convert either way. And her brother
Yeah.
knew that. So he's like, you can be our gateway back into
Mhm.
England.
Infiltrating.
Yes. At the time that she arrived in England, Henrietta spoke little English, and she made quite the statement when she arrived with a vast fortune in diamonds and pearls befitting a Bourbon princess. She was immediately disliked by the English people and often referred to as, quote, the popish brat of France, end quote.
Well, that's rude. So just because she was tiny and couldn't speak English and was Roman Catholic and was like literally everything they hated her? Dang. Because she was the physical embodiment of everything they disliked? Dang.
Yeah, yeah. Their marriage was the first cross-confessional marriage of a Protestant heir to the throne of England to a Catholic French princess.
Okay. So is that saying that like previously it would be a Roman Catholic that would allow a Protestant to
Mm-hmm.
marry them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Pope Urban VIII implored his goddaughter Henrietta to take this opportunity to turn the English away from their Protestant leanings and back towards Catholicism.
Yep, knew that was happening.
Yep.
Because this is the perfect time. And that's
Yep.
probably why the English people hated her. It's
Yep.
because they knew that that was going to happen.
Well, because this takes place not that long after Queen Mary's reign. So people are still very leery of Catholicism.
Well, and it was such a hard fought point. It's definitely a point of contention.
Yeah.
For both sides.
For a while, Charles and Henrietta did not get along, although they put forth a united front when in public. This is partially due to the reception that Henrietta received from the English public, which, fair.
Okay. Yeah, because he wants to be liked by his people so they don't murder him.
Yeah. When Henrietta arrived in England, in addition to bringing with her several expensive possessions, she also brought a number of courtiers from Paris, which included 400 Catholics, 28 of which were priests.
Dang. Yeah, so she's essentially bringing in her own military to infiltrate.
Their rift was exacerbated by Charles's quote-unquote best friend and court favorite, the controlling first Duke of Buckingham, George Villiers.
The flamboyant one?
Yes, the one that he went to Spain with, who believed that Henrietta's court was full of, quote, popish spies, or popish spies.
Yep, because they were.
Yeah.
Because it was.
Yeah. Charles would eventually have all of them expelled from court by 1626, so like a year after their marriage, citing their influence as part of why his marriage was off to a rocky start.
I mean,
This understandably sparked a bit of a diplomatic uproar.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of the agreement, is that
she got to have her people and they would be tolerant and
yep.
Yeah. The king of a different country had asked you specifically to let them in.
But it ended up working out for the better with the Duke's assassination in August of 1628, which brought the couple together now that both of them had lost their closest confidants.
We can only trust each other now, kind of a thing.
Despite all of the court intrigue, the couple actually did start to fall in love. In fact, Charles wrote a letter to his mother-in-law in 1630 in which he noted, quote, "The only dispute that now exists between us is that of conquering each other by affection, both esteeming ourselves victorious in following the will of the other," end quote.
That's sweet.
Charles referred to Henrietta as Maria, and because she struggled so hard with English, he ordered that French become the official court language.
That's very sweet. Because that would have been like the only way that he would have gotten servants and stuff to learn it.
And then she would understand what was being said and not be excluded from court life.
Everything.
Yep.
Literally everything.
Although he decreed that she be officially called Queen Mary, she hated the name and would sign all of her correspondence as Henriette Marie or Henriette R. Which, given the context of that name in recent history, I wouldn't want to be called that either.
Right. Well, especially if you're Roman Catholic.
Yep. The pair would have 9 children together between 1629 and 1644.
Okay, Henrietta.
Their first child, a son, died shortly after birth, but she gave birth to 8 more children and was the quote-unquote most fertile of the Stuart queens.
Yeah, I'd say. Like most of them couldn't even have 1 or 2 that would survive.
Mm-hmm. Let alone have 9.
Yeah, 9. Dang.
Her children include Charles II in 1630, Mary of Orange in 1631, James II in 1633, Elizabeth in 1635, Anne in 1637, Catherine in 1639. She was stillborn, so there were 2 stillborn children. Henry, Duke of Gloucester, in 1640, and Henrietta Anne in 1644. And unlike most monarchs, they were a close-knit group and would regularly take meals together with their children.
Oh, I didn't realize that wasn't a normal thing. Like, I guess it would make sense to a point because, like, you would assume that the king would be really busy
Mm-hmm.
all the time. But that's nice that they were able to still have some semblance of normalcy, of
Mm-hmm.
like what a familial unit should be.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sure they still had a governess, but I think it's good that they had that one-on-one time with their
Extremely.
parents and their siblings. So
Yeah.
Henrietta would go on to be a huge patron of the arts and even popularized masquerade balls.
Oh, so she's to blame for
Yep,
book talk. Thanks.
yep.
Thanks for
Thanks, Henrietta.
that.
Throughout her and Charles's marriage, they held several masquerades at the Queen's house, or Somerset. She also employed the services of several garden designers, as well as painters, such as Anthony van Dyck, who did many of the family portraits throughout the years as their children were born. So
Nice.
several of the portraits that we have of her
Her family.
and her family are from Anthony van Dyck.
God, that would have been a jackpot for him. Could you imagine?
Yeah. Henrietta led a lavish lifestyle, but also funded much of it through her own means. She was the best dressed woman at court, having a French tailor, embroiderer, and perfumer on staff. And due
Mhm.
to the fact that she couldn't speak good English, she rarely attended social events, unless it was in court, obviously.
Right.
Insults and criticisms of her would often go unchecked, although published pamphlets would see the authors and publishers punished. Punishments ranged from a fine or public flogging to the extreme of having one or both ears cut off, such as in the case
Oh.
of the Puritan William Prynne, who had his ears partially removed in 1632.
Oh, and he was Puritan too, so that was probably a lot of it too.
In the 1630s, Henrietta's influence led to the relaxation of laws against Catholics living in England. The law allowed priests to live safely in London and even openly attend Mass. Many Catholics, practitioners and priests alike, who had been imprisoned for their faith, were released by King Charles I. So it took some time, but she did eventually get the tolerance that she was striving for.
I mean, if they didn't already realize that it was going to be a slow game like that, then they were
Yeah.
delusional. Because,
Yep.
like, that type of tolerance does take time. You have to prove to them, you have to prove to people again that you are a person too.
And
That
not that you're
can,
just coming in to try and take over.
right? You're not trying to take over, you're just trying to exist. But they were also trying to take over. So,
Yep. Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Tensions in England continued to grow, leading to a Scottish revolt in 1637, with Charles's
Mhm.
subjects believing that the Pope was infiltrating the English court via the Queen.
Which he probably kind of was.
When Charles turned to the English Parliament to resolve ongoing issues, which certainly weren't helped when a band of Irish rebels in 1641 called themselves the Queen's Army and claimed to be acting upon her royal orders, criticism for his wife continued to mount, to the point that he went to the House of Commons on January 4th, 1642, to arrest the 5 members that were viewed to be the ringleaders on charges of high treason, but they had already been warned and had fled.
Mm. Yeah, good on them because they would definitely be dead.
Yeah.
But like not a good death, like a really horrible, like probably
Yeah.
torturous,
Yeah.
painful death.
By the winter of 1641 and 1642, Parliament had been able to pass a number of laws, including forbidding the king from dismissing Parliament without its consent, forbidding the king from raising extra parliamentary funds through taxes, and abolishing the king's prerogative courts. They overturned the traditional foundations of the government and rewrote the political rules to the detriment of the royal family, including the abolishment of the Anglican Church episcopacy,
Mm.
and the enactment of the Militia Bill, which would place all naval and military appointments under parliamentary inspection without the king's signature.
We need to be able to overthrow the king if we need to.
As conflicts continued to grow ahead of the English Civil War, Henrietta started to dabble with politics, seeking Catholic
Uh-oh.
help to raise troops and money to defend her husband. The fact that Henrietta was French and Catholic, and that she was doing everything to aid the royalist cause, had the parliamentarians of England viewing her as an obstacle to peace.
Yeah. That would make sense. And it would also make sense, too, why the Protestants were so scared, because she was just trying to support her husband and gathering people she had access to, and they
Mm-hmm.
just so happened to all be Roman Catholic. So
Yep.
whether that was a calculated move on her part, religiously or not, it's going to be interpreted that way.
Yeah.
But just from what I gathered with her, I don't think it probably was. It might have been for them, but I don't think it was for her. I think she just
No.
wanted to support her husband.
Yeah. Cardinal Richelieu in France complained that she had turned her back on her native country due to her increased loyalty to the English, even though she had been helping the Catholic cause as her brother wished. In a letter to her sister, Christine of France, Henrietta wrote, quote, "I swear to you that I am almost mad with the sudden changes in my fortunes. From the highest pitch of contentment I am fallen into every kind of misery which affects not only me but others. Imagine what I feel to see the king's power taken from him, the Catholics persecuted, the priests hanged, the persons devoted to us removed and pursued for their lives because they served the king." End quote.
Yeah, that would be really scary. That would be really scary because you think you're safe, but you're
Yep.
actually like in the riskiest profession probably
Yep.
in history.
Yeah.
One of them, at least.
When the English Civil War broke out in August of 1642, Henrietta was in the Netherlands campaigning to raise funds to support her husband and the war effort, as well as selling and pawning jewelry, including the crown jewels, to pay for Charles's army.
Mm.
Additionally, she saw that her eldest daughter Mary was married to William II, Prince of Orange, in 1641. So that was the main reason that she was
Yep.
there, and then she just kind of stayed for a while.
Well, I'm here and I'm safe.
Yep, I'm going to try
Let's
and drum up some stuff.
let's get some money.
She set sail in January of 1643 to return to England, but her ship was beset by storms for 9 days, during which she lost an entire ship full of war materials that she'd gathered for her husband.
Oh.
In February 1643, she arrived at Bridlington, Yorkshire, in northern England with not only weapons, but professional soldiers that marched behind her.
Mm.
An article in the April 13th, 1929 edition of the Chattanooga News notes this time in part as follows. Quote, "It was when she landed at Burlington Quay in Yorkshire that she had the adventure which has rendered her memory dear to all animal lovers. She related it some time after to Mademoiselle Dumont Eville. The landing was accomplished under difficult conditions, for the weather was bad, and Admiral Batten, representing Parliament, was energetically engaged in an attempt to frustrate her. Her attendants succeeded in conducting the Queen to a certain house. However, the Admiral located it and gave evidence of the hatred in which she was held by directing a hot cannonade upon it. My friends impressed upon me that I must leave the house, she told Madame du Motteville, but where was I to go? Ah, my friend, there was no refuge for me but a ditch outside the town. She who had sat
Mm.
upon a throne must cower in the shadows of a ditch. We set out secretly, but the fire upon our position had been furious and unceasing. Bullets whistled past us and fell about us. It says bullets, but it's really muskets, musket bullets, musket balls.
Mm.
We had gotten well into Burlington Street when I suddenly gasped. Mitty! I exclaimed. Mitty! I have left her behind! I had an old, ugly dog. I called her Mitty, and I loved her very much. Was it not that she loved me? I do not know why I had forgotten her. It was the excitement of unaccustomed dangers, I suppose. But when I remembered her, I could not bear to leave her to the mercies of Batten, the parliamentary admiral. My attendants implored me to hurry on. I did not heed them. Instead, I turned and ran back into the house. Rushing upstairs, I found poor Mitty fast asleep on my bed. I caught her up in my arms and brought her away. A brave deed and a tender one. Mitty shared the ditch refuge of her mistress with perfect equanimity, it seems, and uttered no betraying barks or whines." End quote.
Yeah, because she probably suffered from smoke inhalation, and he saved her, but barely. So
There was this adorable illustration of her. It looked like a little King Charles Cavalier dog. I have no
yeah,
idea
probably. Yeah.
what it actually was, but that's what it looked like. I had an old ugly dog, and I ran back through danger under musket fire to save her. She set up camp in York, hoping to reunite with her king in Oxford, where he had set up a temporary capital. In a letter to him, she wrote, quote, "I am in the greatest impatience in the world to join you." End quote. In May 1643, Henrietta was impeached by Parliament for high treason, and it was decreed that she would no longer be allowed to hold the title of Queen of England. When her husband ordered her south, she took Burton-upon-Trent, a strategic town with a river crossing that connected North and South England. The fighting took 8 hours, but her royalist army broke through the town's defenses on July 4th, 1643. She also gained the port of Scarborough. It took 5 months before Henrietta and her band of 1,000 soldiers arrived in Oxford on July 14th, 1643. Henrietta stayed with her husband in Oxford, helping him strategize, as he grew confident and dependent on her counsel, as, quote, "her love that maintains my life, her kindness that upholds my courage," end quote. The pair spent several months working together towards the cause of re-establishing royal supremacy until she was forced to flee to France in April of 1644, pregnant with her 9th child.
Oh God, could you imagine fleeing for your life and pregnant?
God.
And then your ninth child too. So at this point she has 7. No,
Mm-hmm.
6.
6 that are alive, yes.
Six that are alive that she also has to worry about on top of.
The one she's carrying, yep.
Yeah, and I just looked up photos. It looks like she had an Italian Greyhound at one point. So I'm just gonna say that the Italian Greyhound was Mitty because he looks really cute. Like whoever Anthony Van Dyke, well done. Like the dogs actually look like dogs.
Yeah, his
Like
portraits are very good. Very good.
they're incredible.
Very good.
Like that looks like a greyhound. Wow, it doesn't look like a demon baby from space.
Yep. In a quote from the National Archives, quote, "After attempts by Parliament to negotiate with Charles I in 1642 and 1645, Henrietta Maria made her feelings known to Charles I. The Uxbridge Treaty of 1645 stated that Parliament should have the right to control the militia and foreign policy. The Solemn League and Covenant must be adhered to by Charles. And episcopacy, I don't know why I struggle with that word so much,
Episcopacy?
must be abolished. Henrietta Maria, some might argue quite shrewdly, warned her husband that if you consent to this, you shall be lost." End quote.
Hmm.
When she set sail from Falmouth on July 14th, 1644 for France, Henrietta was pursued by parliamentarian ships. They fired on the fleet, and Henrietta gave orders to the captain to blow the gunpowder in the ship's hold should they be overrun. She knew that her capture would be used against Charles, and she refused to put him in that type of situation.
That was kind of her. But also, don't really want to be captured because you'd be tortured and
Yeah,
killed. So, yeah, it's for him, but also it's definitely for her and her unborn
yeah,
child.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they had made it, very clear that they wanted her dead. They
Yeah.
were very clearly actively trying to kill her.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole house on fire, muskets.
Yep,
Running for your life several times, fleeing to different
yep,
countries.
yep. While in exile, she reached out to every court she and her supporters could think of to send her husband aid. France, Lorraine, or Laurent, Holland, Denmark, Ireland, Scotland, and Rome. Although she was able to secure aid from the French crown, it fell short of what she had hoped. In a letter to Charles in 1645, she wrote, quote, "I have not found the means of engaging France as forwardly in your interest as I expected." End quote.
They didn't have my back like I hoped. That's what that is.
The king's campaign continued to fail, and his private letters were seized at the Battle of Naseby in June of 1645. All of his secret letters with his wife, which put to paper all of her efforts to raise money for him, as well as his own promises to grant more tolerance to English Catholics in return for aid, were published in London.
Oh no. He's dead.
Yeah. His subjects
Bye.
now viewed him as shiftless and untrustworthy, and he was
Yeah.
forced to surrender to Scottish forces on May 5th, 1645, hoping that his own people would be more lenient on him than those of England. So he's originally
They're
from
not.
Scotland.
Yeah, they're not going to be, I don't think.
The Scots handed him over to the English Parliament, and over the course of the next 2.5 years, Henrietta lived in France in daily fear for the lives of her husband and children.
She didn't get out with her children.
No.
Oh my God. That would be terrifying.
Yeah. Only her youngest daughter, Henrietta Anne, had been able to be smuggled into France thanks to the efforts of her mother. So she had actually, before she even got to France, given birth to her baby and had to leave her there.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Could you imagine like a brand new mom and like regardless of how involved she really was with like her children in terms of child rearing as royalty?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, it was through her mom's efforts that she was able to smuggle her infant daughter into France.
Thank God for that. Terrifying.
In 1648, the French government stopped paying Henrietta her stipend. They had their own revolution to worry about.
They were still paying her?
Yeah, the French government was still paying her. But, they had a revolution coming on their hands and they couldn't afford to pay her anymore. And by that
Yeah.
winter, she was so strapped for cash that she couldn't even afford fire to warm her and her 4-year-old daughter.
Whoa. It's quite a stark contrast of her life
Yeah.
for her entire life.
Desperate to be with her husband, she wrote letters to Parliament asking for safe conduct to England. The letters would go unanswered, as on January 30th, 1649, Charles I was put on trial at Westminster Hall, convicted for high treason, and beheaded at Whitehall.
Kind of figured that was gonna happen.
Henrietta did not receive the news until several days later. She was so shocked that at first she could not speak or even weep, noting later, quote, "I wonder I did not die of grief," end quote.
I bet. I bet that was really shocking because you would, I think, at that point, you would just be delusional and hope without hope that you'd be okay and your family would be okay.
Her eldest sons, Charles and James, arrived in Paris soon after the death of their father, and Henrietta assumed the role of chief advisor to her son, Charles II. She was informed that her other children, Henry and Elizabeth Stuart, had been allowed to say goodbye to their father prior to him being led to the scaffold. It was said that Elizabeth never recovered from the shock, and
Mm.
she passed away in England at the age of 14 on September 8th, 1650.
Oh God, that's so sad.
Henry, who was only 9 at the time of his father's death, didn't fully understand what had happened and continued to be a
Yeah.
prisoner of the English Parliament until 1653, when Oliver Cromwell allowed him to leave England to live with his eldest sister Mary in Holland. Henrietta continued to stay in France until the Restoration, when her son Charles II was able to reclaim the throne in 1660, following Oliver Cromwell's death in 1658. The pair's relationship would be forever changed when Henrietta attempted to convert her youngest son Henry to Roman Catholicism, which alienated her from her
Mm.
eldest son Charles.
That's not good.
The only one of her children that she was able to convert was her youngest, Henrietta Anne, but the rest of her children refused to convert from the Anglican Church.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it would be safe to say at that point it would be for their safety.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not, we're just doing it to piss mom off. We're doing it so we can survive. Because look at what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in their eyes, who knows? they thought that, like, just because their dad tolerated it, he got murdered.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no thanks, Mom.
Henrietta visited England very briefly in 1660 to see her 30-year-old son Charles II ascend to the throne, but returned to France in 1661 to secure her youngest marriage to Philip, Duke of Orleans, on March 31st, 1661. Henrietta lived in the Queen's House, also known as Somerset House, between 1662 and 1663, and became the last queen to live there. She was granted a pension of £60,000 a year, or 10 million today, and founded a convent at Chaillot in Paris, where she spent the majority of her time when she wasn't visiting her family in England.
Crazy.
Henrietta never got over the death of her husband, and similar to Queen Victoria, dressed in mourning clothes the rest of her life. She remarked that had she not had responsibilities to her youngest daughter, she likely would have entered a convent for the rest of her natural days.
Yeah, I can see that, especially if she was extremely devout, because that, for her, that would have been it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can't really remarry.
A few years later, in 1665, Henrietta contracted the plague, but some sources say she had contracted bronchitis, and she returned to her home country of France, where on September 10th, 1669, near Paris, she took an opiate prescribed by one of her physicians to help her sleep, and she never woke up. She
Yeah.
was just a few days shy of turning 60 at the time of her death.
That's surprisingly old for her tumultuous life. That's old age.
Mm-hmm.
That's a well-lived life at that point during that time.
She outlived 6 of her 9 children. Her first son, who was stillborn, Mary, who died from smallpox at the age of 29, Elizabeth, who died from pneumonia at the age of 14, Anne, who died from tuberculosis at the age of 3, Catherine, who was stillborn, and Henry, who died from smallpox at the age of 20.
Man.
She is buried in the French royal necropolis at the Basilica of Saint Denis, and her heart was removed and placed in a silver casket that is buried at her convent in Chaillot.
Why?
I don't know.
That seems weird to me because aren't Catholics too, like, super into, like, preserving the body?
Yeah, I thought that too.
Like, isn't that something, like, you're not supposed to
Yeah,
cremate or, like,
you're not supposed to mutilate the corpse. It's supposed to stay the same so that when they rise again, they're not missing anything.
hmm.
Oscar Wilde wrote a poem entitled Queen Henrietta Maria. Quote, "In the lone tent, waiting for victory, she stands with eyes marred by the mists of pain, like some wan lily overdrenched with rain. The clamorous clang of arms, the ensanguined sky, war's ruin and the wreck of chivalry. To her proud soul no common fear can bring. Bravely she tarrieth for her lord the king, her soul aflame with passionate ecstasy. O hair of gold, O crimson lips, O face made for the luring and the love of man. With thee I do forget the toil and stress, the loveless road that knows no resting place. Time's straitened pulse, the soul's dread weariness, my freedom and my life Republican." End quote.
Mm.
And lastly, Lauren Wilmot subs it up best in her article. Quote, "She was one of the constant leading royalist figures, and regardless of the extent of her influence over Charles, her role within the Civil War was of great importance. Her perceived influence deepened the division between the two sides. She was a genuine concern for contemporaries, quote unquote, invading the male sphere of politics and threatening the natural order of authority, and in some ways contributed to the downfall of her husband. Because of this, she must not be banished to the sidelines of the history of the British Civil Wars." End quote.
Yeah, she made a big difference whether she realized it or not, and whether she meant to or not. I think that's kind of the one thing is, like, how much how much of what happened was intentional on her part. Like, I don't want to say necessarily conniving because I
Mm-hmm.
don't think anything she did was really for the detriment of anybody in particular. I think she just wanted a better life for the people she loved.
I think she genuinely was trying to do what she could to support her husband. And
because that was what she's supposed to do.
yep.
And like with the constant berating and judgment and like I think she was probably more intense because of the scrutiny too. And it just was never good enough. It was never right.
Hi, I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan. We are Mountain Murders, an Appalachian true crime podcast dropping weekly episodes every Sunday.
Our show offers well-researched cases with unique storytelling and southern flavor.
Stories so good you'll want to sop them up with a biscuit.
Ooh, I pull back the curtain on lesser-known and often obscure regional cases from Georgia to Maine, exploring the darkness that lurks deep in the heart of Appalachia.
And I react with profound statements.
You mean profoundly stupid statements?
Something like that.
We're not your stereotypical hillbillies.
But we do like moonshine.
It'll tickle your innards.
Join us every Wednesday for Mountain Murders Offbeat.
Offbeat is a mini episode covering a variety of topics from true crime to conspiracy theories, the paranormal, and Appalachian-centric subjects.
Find Mountain Murders anywhere you download podcasts. Hit subscribe today to catch up on our latest episodes or binge our catalog.
Looking for more content? You can find us online at yieldcrimepodcast.com. If you'd like to see pictures from this week's episode, not to mention bonus content and funny memes, make sure to follow us on Twitter at YieldCrimePod and on Facebook and Instagram at YieldCrimePodcast. On TikTok, of course you are. Follow us at YieldCrimePodcast. This week's podcast plug is Mountain Murders, not your typical Appalachian true crime podcast, hosted by Heather and Dylan. Who knew mountains could be so deadly?
Oh, we did.
I mean, I did.
I mean, if you know about the Appalachians, you know. Like,
Yeah.
seems deadly.
Are you ready to embark on a perilous journey through the treacherous peaks of true crime, where chilling tales of mayhem and mystery await? Join your intrepid hosts as they navigate the dark side of nature, exploring crimes that will make your hair stand on end. From mysterious disappearances to shocking homicides, their podcast will have you on the edge of your seat, clutching your hiking gear tightly. So grab your headphones, strap on your adventure boots, and get ready for a wild ride through the untamed world of Mountain Murders true crime.
Get ready to never want to hike again. But in like the best way.
Just leave an offering to the old gods and turn around and walk away.
Old gods, new gods, your gods, their gods.
Mm-hmm. And we will have a link to their show in the show notes. This week's listener question comes from Carrie Ann.
Hi, Carrie Ann.
Which would you rather find in your attic / under your bed? 1,000 roaches or a man?
A man. I can kill a man faster than roaches. There's too many roaches. I can't kill them all at once.
That's fair.
You know? But like with a man, I can really try. I can put my best foot forward. But like with roaches, I can't. There's too many of them.
There's too many. They scurry really fast.
As soon as they scatter, like...
It's all over.
Yeah. That's what I'm going... yeah. I could kill a man. If I had enough adrenaline and fear, I could do it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I
don't know.
I'm going to go with that as well, just because I don't want to have to burn down my own house.
Fair.
Which is what I would have to do if I had 1,000 roaches in my house. I would burn it down.
Yeah, could you imagine just the sound alone?
What?
The sound alone. Like,
Mm-mm.
No.
No, thank you.
I love how I just escalated quickly to like, the man in my house underneath my bed could be harmless and charming and absolutely lovely, but I immediately went like, yeah, I'd kill him.
Oh yeah, I can kill that guy.
Oh yeah, I can murder that guy.
But to be fair, if they're in your attic or under your bed, They probably shouldn't be there.
They probably shouldn't be there.
So,
This is not a fun situation. There was no consent here.
no, I'm going to say it's okay if you defend yourself
Yeah.
by whatever means necessary.
That's my purse. I don't know you. That's my attic. I don't know you.
Up to and including a blowtorch. Like, just saying.
Right.
Beds can be replaced.
Mm-hmm. Well, and see, that's the thing too. Like, my weapon, my quickest weapon by my bed would be insulin, because that could kill somebody if you're not diabetic. So I can't stab 1,000 roaches with insulin and hope for the best.
No. They probably turn into like super roaches and turn on you.
Right. They just become durable medical equipment. They just become insulin pumps at that point.
Yeah. All right. On that terrifying note, what's something good you'd like to share?
Well, something good. So I've touched on it before, of how I am currently in the job market looking for a new role. I do not currently have a full-time job. I do have some freelance work that I'm working on, and I'm kind of, now that we're moved, settling the house a little bit, and I'm studying to get some certifications to make me more marketable as I'm applying. But as you know, kind of nice as you would think it would be to have this time to do the studying and to do kind of this thing, there's a lot of guilt in not contributing to the home in the same way you've been contributing to the home. And I experienced this the last time, and I'm experiencing it now. And so it's really, really easy to get really depressed and just like rot in a spot in your home and just like, I'm still applying to jobs, I'm still studying, I'm still doing things, but like the guilt bug has been fed very well for about a month now. So I have been reaching out to friends and stuff to like try to do my best to keep it at bay. And one of the things they suggested too was like, why don't you just go outside for a little bit? Like, even like 10 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be that long. Just go outside. Just reset, because it's so easy to get like stuck. And so that's what I really focused on last week, was trying to go out with Willie and Chief and just exist for a little bit. And so I've been studying as much as I can, as much as the like headphones charge for my wireless headphones. So I'll be listening to the certification course and writing notes outside with the dogs. And it's been really, really nice to just be out there. And I think it's helped a lot of like reminding me that while this sucks and it's scary to not have as much of a safety net as you normally do, I'm still okay. We're still okay. We're able to afford what we need. And I am utilizing the help that I have to the best of my ability. I'm using it just for what we need to. I'm still applying and trying my best to get stuff done. And I had really good conversations with some of the like workers at the county level here. Super big shout out, honestly, to Isanti County, where I'm at, because I've had such helpful conversations about my career and where I'm going, and I have support in potentially pivoting my career a little bit, which is crazy to me and something I wasn't considering, but I always wanted. So this week, I have like a lot of good feelings about, because I feel like now that I gave myself the weekend to just exist and be outside, and I helped mom plant some stuff, and that was really lovely and great. But I think my good thing this week, honestly, is going to be what's going to happen this week, where I'm really looking at what I want to do, because one thing I've always had in the back of my head ever since I graduated and got my bachelor's is, did I mess up, and should I have been pre-law? Should I have gone into law instead of healthcare?
Mm.
And there are some ways I could pivot to dip my toes into law without, I don't know, going too far from what my experience is currently. So I'm going to explore some stuff this week and kind of see where that is. But I was really fortunate this past week. I had a lot of little, really nice little moments, and that really helped a lot. So big shout out to my friends and family that have been there and have checked in and have been patient with me as I reply as I can, because when I get in a mood to be productive, I have to stick with it. Like, I can't have any distractions or I'll just go right back into my little rotting spot. So,
Yep.
So a very long-winded version of my something good, but that's my something good is I'm keeping on, and it seems like it's gonna end well, hopefully. What about you? What's your something good?
My foot seems to be healing well.
Yay!
I don't know how personal I want to get,
Do
but
they
I've talked
do
about
they know what happened?
Well,
Just that you had a foot surgery.
yeah, I haven't said. I had I don't remember what the terms are. I had a bunion fixed and a hammer toe
Yeah.
fixed. So
hmm It runs in our family, and it seems like my feet will probably end up having to have something similar
yeah.
eventually.
So this is the first of 2 surgeries. Obviously I only have 2 feet. And duh, Lindsay. So this is my foray into having my feet fixed, and I had my right one done first because that was the one that was giving me
It's
problems.
worse.
And it seems to be healing okay. It's a 6-week recovery, and this is only the start of week 2. So I have a very good nurse. I'm very thankful for Thomas. He's a very, very good nurse. And yeah,
That's awesome. You got a cool new scooter.
I wouldn't say it's
Do
cool.
you own it?
No, I'm renting it.
Okay.
And I don't like it. The wheels are not good for outdoor. Like,
Yeah.
if I hit a rock or a stick, I am potentially going over the handlebars of the scooter.
Yeah, durable medical equipment is not good. Like, it's kind of shocking how
Yeah, as an able-bodied person, normally, I was appalled by
Yeah.
how horrible
hmm
these products are. Like, it makes me very angry for people that have to use them.
Well, like, look at crutches and
Yeah,
how, like, little improvements we've made over the past, like, what, thousands of years at this point.
yeah. The doctor was like, "Just keep your scooter." And I wanted to be like, "Then can I have a better
No.
one? Because this one sucks."
Can I have one? Can I have one with off-road tires? Can I have an
Yeah, can I
aftermarket scooter?
yeah. Can I just go buy one somewhere and put
RC card
shock-absorbing
tires.
tires on it? Skateboard tires on it? But
Yeah,
yeah.
go to a bike shop.
But yeah, and I'm getting outside, so I'm trying to be as mobile as I can while also
Yeah,
being mindful of my body and not pushing myself and all those fun things. My
it's
family has
fine.
been very accommodating and helpful because we have so many stairs in the house, and
Yeah, you
you
do.
can't get to a bathroom without taking stairs. I have been crawling around the house like something out of a Korean horror movie. So I have definitely scarred my children by crawling around in a darkened hallway looking like I'm
A demon.
coming for
Just
them. So,
yeah. Cute
sorry,
though.
kids. It was just me. Just trying to get to the bathroom. It's fine.
Mom was
All
gonna
right.
pee.
I am going to piss my pants, so I need to scurry
Yeah.
fast.
Yep.
Fast and scurious. That was me.
Scuttling. You should make that scuttle noise.
I did
Like,
one time. And there was one time I got up early before my oldest would get on the bus. and I could see her downstairs on the couch. I've been staying in my
Mhm.
office because I can't get on my regular bed. It's too high. And I was like kind of scurrying in the hallway, and I went as I was like,
Make the noise again. I love that noise so much.
as I like,
It doesn't pick up on the mic very well. It's so frustrating.
but yeah, so I like was scurrying into the bedroom, and I tried to be like louder on purpose. And she
Yeah.
came in a few minutes later, and she's like, "Oh my God, you scared the crap out of me, Mom. Like, all I see is like the tips of your feet, like scurrying into your office." So, yeah.
Amazing.
But I now have permission to use my heel for balance if I have to. So that makes things a little bit
Okay.
easier. Although my thigh on my left leg is going to be completely swole by the time this is healed because I've had to
Oh,
use
yeah.
it so much to get up and down and
Yeah,
hop all around. All right, shall we?
we shall.
A great way to support the show, if you'd like to do so, but you can't do so financially, is to leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Good Pods, Castbox, Podcast Addict, and or Audible. Got something you want to say? Shoot us an email over at yeoldcrimepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your story ideas, see any gifts you send our way, or if you just want to say hello. We're pretty friendly. Speaking of friendly, if you'd like to have real-time conversations with us, consider joining our Discord over at the Cultivate Network. You can chat with us over at the Old Crimers Cubby, or catch up with any of the other great creators that are part of the Cultivate family of podcasts. Just click the link in our show notes or over on our link tree to get started today. We just had a sale for our TeePublic shop, which I was unable to promote in the last episode, which was an interview with author Judith Starkston. So the next sale will be at the end of the month, so May 20th through the 27th, and you can get 35% off. And on that note, as always, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Madison.
And we'll see you next time with another tale
As old as crime.